Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing another book collection video. It's been over a year. I've been very busy, and yeah, I decided to do it today. Now, I'm shooting this at night because I didn't have time today, and it was gloomy outside all day long. There was no sun. It was raining all day long, so yeah, because winter's approaching. And yeah, so I've bought quite a few books since the last video. If you've been following my Instagram, I'm sure you're aware of that. So I'm just gonna give you a look at, all of the books I've bought. I do have an older video discussing the first 12 books that I bought. I'm not going to go through those ones again in this video, so you can watch that video first if you want to. And so yeah, let's get into it. And I'm just going to pick them out in random order. I'm not going to go through them in the order that I bought them. And as you can see, it's mostly Stephen King, so yeah. We'll save the non-Stephen King stuff for last. And yeah, so let's jump straight into it. Okay, let's start right here. Oh, and before I begin, I know the bookshelf is pink. Yeah, so it's a long story. It's not really my bookshelf. My parents just gave it to me because they weren't really doing anything with it. So yeah, the first book here, we have Cujo. Cujo is the one about the rabid killer dog. And funny story, this is, I think, the only book that Stephen King doesn't remember writing, like at all, because he did so much of cocaine in the 70s and 80s, and yeah, that says a lot about it. This is part of a collection of 5 books: Cujo, The Dark Half, Pet Sematary, Salem's Lot, and The Shining. The only one I don't have is The Dark Half, because I'm looking specifically for that edition right there. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to reading this one in the future. It's the whole killer dog thing sounds pretty cool, you know? I used to be terrified of dogs as a kid, but not anymore. So, yeah, there's that one. Then the next one is, of course, a classic, Pet Sematary, one of his most iconic works. I know very little about this one, but from what I'm told, it's remarkable. And excuse me, apparently this book is so bleak that Stephen King just didn't want to release it because of how, like I said, how bleak and grim it is. Yeah. And yeah, this is looking forward to this one. And I hear there's a small connection to Insomnia, because I hear Insomnia is connected to quite a few books in Stephen King's universe. The next one is, of course, The Shining. Everybody knows this one for the film adaptation, which I have seen and I love. I think that's one of the best Stephen King adaptations out there, and one of the best Stanley Kubrick movies. Possibly my favorite Stanley Kubrick film. It's just amazing. Now, Stephen King doesn't really like the movie because of the many deviations from the book, and there are fans who agree with the same thing. I've yet to read it, and I'd be interested to see what was, changed for the movie, because I hear there's something about hedge animals that didn't make it into the movie. There's another, like a mini-series that King himself wrote, and it's more faithful to his book. So I haven't seen that. I'm looking forward to that. And then we have Salem's Lot. This is the one I'm currently reading. I've made some decent progress. This is basically King's take on, it's a cross between like Dracula and an Alfred Hitchcockian kind of haunted house kind of thing, you know? It's very, very good. I'm really enjoying it so far. It's kind of a slow burn, so it might be a bit of a slog at first, but if the slow burn aesthetic, it really works in this book's favor because it has the town of Jerusalem's lot to flesh out and the characters, and the slow build-up leading to, you know, the vampires doing what they've set out to do. It makes sense, you know? Yeah. Oh, and this edition comes with 2 short stories, Jerusalem's Lot and One for the Road, that can be found in the Night Shift collection. I don't have that, but yeah, those 2 short stories are in here. And after that, there's about 100 pages worth of deleted scenes. I don't know that many authors who would include deleted scenes in their books. So yeah, that's the cool thing about Salem's Lot, or at least this edition of Salem's Lot. That's why I'm glad I have this one. Next up, we have Gerald's Game. This is the first edition copy of the book, and I got it pretty cheap. It's a secondhand edition. I don't buy that many hardcovers, but yeah, I got this one, and yeah, because it was pretty cheap. It reminds me of Misery. You know how Misery had 2 characters in a house, and you know, for the entire book, and here you've got 2 characters in a room. They're like chained up to a bedroom post, and yeah, I know very little about it, but I've been told some great things about it. And it has a connection to the next book I'm going to talk about, and that's Dolores Claiborne. I think this is a first edition copy, I'm not sure, but it is secondhand, so it's quite old. Yeah, there's the basic premise there. Sounds like my kind of thing, and the cool thing is that aside from its connection to Gerald's Game, it doesn't have any chapters, like at all. It's just one continuous interrogation of the main character, Dolores Claiborne. So, yeah, interesting. Oh, and it reminds me of Misery because Misery had a film adaptation that starred Kathy Bates, and she was also in Dolores Claiborne. So, yeah. Anything with Kathy Bates in it, you know, any Stephen King adaptation, look out for those. Then we have Dr. Sleep, which is the sequel to The Shining. So I've been told a lot of great things about this sequel, and it focuses on the son of Jack Torrance. I don't know if you remember Dan Torrance from The Shining, whether it's the book or the movie. Yeah, I still need to read The Shining, and I hear this was adapted into a pretty cool movie. And the guy who directed that movie directed the adaptation of Gerald's Game, and he wants to take a shot at, you know, adapting the Dark Tower books into movies. So, yeah, that sounds interesting. Then this one, this is Dreamcatcher. This is often considered to be one of his weakest books, and it's a book that he himself, in recent years, admits that he doesn't like very much. But there's a story behind this one, and it's the fact that King got into an accident in the late 90s, and he was on painkillers for about a year or 2, and he wrote this one in logbooks, and the process was difficult. It was something very unexpected for him, and this one, kind of like it, you know, you have a group of friends, and you know, they get caught up in something out of the ordinary. That's all I can say. I don't know much about it, but I was told to check out this one regardless. You know, just the fact that it's not held in high regard, even though some people defend it and King himself isn't proud of it, that, you know, got my attention. Yeah, I'll be interested in checking that one out. And what do we have next? Insomnia. So Insomnia is one of the books he put out in the 90s, and this one ties into the Dark Tower quite a bit. You know, it apparently gives you insight into the Crimson King, who's like the most powerful villain in the Stephen King multiverse, if you will. And it ties into a bunch of other books. And it's quite chunky. It's like 900 pages, if I recall. So, yeah. There's actually a collection here that it's a part of. There's Desperation, which I don't have. There's Needful Things, which I don't have. I don't have that edition of Cell that you see right there. I have Dreamcatcher, I have Insomnia, I have It, and I have The Stand. So, yeah. This one will be interesting. Okay. Whoops. Excuse me. Okay. Then we have It. Yes, the one about Pennywise the Dancing Clown. When it comes to it, yeah, it's like over 1,200 pages or something like that. And I have only seen the 2017 movie, which is basically half the book. I've yet to see Chapter 2. I haven't seen the original miniseries with Tim Curry as Pennywise. And I hear there's a prequel series being produced by HBO called Welcome to Derry. That's the town that it is set in, so it'll be interesting. But this one does tie into the Dark Tower, so I'm going to read that at some point. Oops. Okay, what do we have next? Next, we have The Stand. Yes, M-O-O-N. That spells The Stand. So, I've actually read this one. It took me a while to finish it. It's like 1,300 pages or something like that. It's a little bit, dirty and a little bit tattered because I spent quite some time reading this behemoth of a book. See there? That kind of shows. Yeah, this was a really good story, and it became relevant because of COVID. It, of course, has the Man in Black, Randall Flagg, who, ties into the Dark Tower series, so it's actually important that you read this one. So, yeah, it's, and yeah, there's actually two versions of The Stand. There's the original 1978 first edition, which is only about 800 or so pages, and then there's this one, which is the uncut version. It basically adds all the material that King wanted to include in the original version. So, if you're going to read this book, make sure you get the uncut version. It's important for the Dark Tower series, and, it's better. It's quite long, but, yeah, it works. As a, for what it is, it's pretty good. I had a blast with it. I kind of miss reading it. Yeah, this was quite something. Okay, those are the Dark Tower books. We don't need to look at those, because I spoke about them in my last video. Let's go down. Let's take a look. Okay, so we have Christine. This is the one about the possessed car. That's all I know about this one. And this version is like 700 or so pages. Sheesh. Yeah. I hear there's a movie adaptation directed by John Carpenter. John Carpenter's made some great stuff like Halloween and Escape from LA and New York and his remake of The Thing and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. This one will be fun to read. Oh dear. It's quite chunky. Alright, excuse me for a moment. Okay. Then we have Misery. The one that was turned into the iconic movie starring Kathy Bates, which I believe garnered her an Oscar win. And she rightly deserved it because she's really, really creepy in that movie. I haven't seen it, but I know about it, so yeah. Yeah. I'm looking forward to this one. It's a book that pretty much predicted the concept of toxic fandom. Stephen King predicted a lot of things with his books, basically. So, that'll be cool. Then we have Rose Matter. Look at this cover. So this one's quite interesting. You've got this abused woman who's on the run from her husband, her abusive husband. And then she comes across this painting at this, I don't know, like hotel or motel that she's staying at, and yeah, she gets trapped in it, and then yeah, all types of things unfold from there. And there's a Dark Tower connection in this too, so that's pretty cool. I like this bull, so cool. Yeah, I hear, oh dear, I hear there's yet to be a film adaptation of such a wicked concept like that, you know. Then this little tiny gem here is The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. This is about a girl who's a big fan of a baseball player called Tom Gordon, and she gets lost in the woods. And it's about a tale of survival, you know. And I think this was the last thing King wrote before his accident. It's not regarded as one of his best books, and it's not really that long either, but yeah, some people out there like it, you know. I guess your enjoyment of it will depend on how much you like baseball. I'm not a baseball fan, so yeah, but I'm intrigued. I really am. Okay, that's Cell. We don't need to look at that. Then we have Different Seasons. This is a collection of 4 novellas. The 4 novellas in here are Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, which was adapted into the Shawshank Redemption movie. The Body, which was adapted into Stand By Me. Apt Pupil, and The Breathing Method. You know, I think Apt Pupil was adapted into a movie as well, but it's one that most people don't really talk about, and The Breathing Method is yet to get an adaptation. And yeah, there's plenty of other collections he's done. I don't really have any of these, so yeah, I'm looking forward to getting those in the future. Okay, excuse me again. Alright, next up, we have The Talisman. I bought this, I think, around December last year. This is a collaboration between Stephen King and Peter Straub. Yeah. This ties into The Dark Tower, and it actually has a sequel called Black House, which I don't have, but I do plan to get in the future. Yeah, it's a pretty intriguing premise, this. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. It's quite chunky, but if it ties into The Dark Tower, I'm going to check it out. Next up is a book I plan on reading later this year, and it's The Eyes of the Dragon. I almost said House of the Dragon. That's Game of Thrones, my bad. Yeah, this is a medieval fantasy kind of young adult fiction kind of story. Something the king wrote for his daughter Naomi. And it ties into The Dark Tower because it's got Randall Flagg in it, I think, when he was much younger. This isn't regarded as one of his absolute best books, but it does have its fans, so there's that, you know. Yeah. Looking forward to reading that later this year, just to see King's take on medieval fantasy. Then we have Bag of Bones. This one kind of ties into The Dark Tower, mainly through Insomnia, so that's kind of why I wanted to get it. And the idea behind this one was interesting. There's this writer whose, wife dies, and then he suffers writer's block, and then he, goes to this old lakeside cabin that he used to live in, and he tries to get his creative spark back, but then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that unfolds there. Yeah, I hear there's a movie adaptation with Pierce Brosnan, so that's cool as well. Yeah, this will be interesting. As an aspiring author myself, the whole writer's block thing, I can totally relate to that. Then we've got On Writing. This is actually non-fiction. The way King sees it, it's part memoir and, part writing masterclass. There's a lot of advice that he gives here. A lot of interesting stuff, apparently. And, yeah. So, this is something I'll definitely need as an aspiring author. I should find some time to read that. Then this I got recently. It's a second-hand edition of Everything's Eventual. It was pretty cheap, and yeah, 1408, which was made into a movie, is a short story within here. There are two short stories in here that tie into the Dark Tower, and that's Everything's Eventual, the titular short story, and The Little Sisters of Eluria. And there's a ton of other stuff that I've yet to check out. So, looking forward to this later. And then this one, Under the Dome. This is, I think, one of the last things I bought in 2020. Yeah. I mean, technically, The Shining was the last thing I bought, but my mother bought that for me for Christmas that year. So yeah, this is cool because it's almost as if The Simpsons predicted this book. You know, when they got trapped in the dome in the Simpsons movie. But King had been working on this back in the 70s, and then he just kind of stopped writing. It's quite big, though my copy isn't like 1,000+ pages. It's somewhere between 800 to 900. Yeah, there's a TV adaptation as well, but apparently that went off the rails a bit, so I think, yeah, stretching the concept out to 3 seasons was probably a mistake. Yeah, the idea of a small town getting trapped under a dome, and, the characters try to figure out what's going on and how to get out of there and stuff like that, that's cool. It's a great concept. Yeah, so that'll be interesting. And then we have Gwendy's Button Box, a collaboration between Stephen King and Richard Chizmar. And yeah, this one's interesting from what I've heard. I'm sure you've probably noticed maybe the lighting's a little bit brighter, and that's because I put off shooting the whole thing last night, and instead I decided to finish it up the following morning. So let's get back to it. Then we have The Outsider. This is kind of a spin-off set in the same universe as the Bill Hodges trilogy, which I don't have. But I will read that first, obviously, before reading this, because this spoils the entire trilogy. So read those books first before you read this one. And of course, it's an HBO series, well, miniseries, because there aren't really any current plans to do another season. There's a murder that happened, and prime suspect, his DNA is at the crime scene, but he has a good alibi, so how could he have been in 2 places at the same time? That's the question. So I'm looking forward to this one in the future. Yeah, and it does have a follow-up in the form of If It Bleeds, which I spoke about in the previous book collection video. There's a novella in here of the same name that's basically a follow-up to The Outsider. Okay, there we go. Next one is Later. This is one of the 2 books that King released last year in 2021, and this one, I loved it. I just couldn't get enough of it. It is, it's about this kid named Jamie Conklin who can speak to the dead in a way. He lives with his mother who's single, and his mother's investigating her latest case, and he gets caught up in it. And it's pretty cool, the writing style and the character of Jamie and just all that stuff, It's one of those stories that'll stick with you. And then the other book he put out that year is Billy Summers. It's about an assassin who comes out of retirement for one last job, and the thing about Billy Summers is that he only kills bad people, and he's working on a book that is inspired by his experience in the Iraq War, which he was actually a part of when he was much younger. So, well, yeah, it's a fake identity, but I guess you could say he becomes invested in writing that story along the way. And yeah, this was a great one. It's not his best work, but I really enjoyed it. Oops, Later fell. Just give me a moment. Alright, so those are all the Stephen King books. We're gonna look at other authors that I plan to read. So let's start from the top over there. We have, whoops, we have Breakouts by Paul Herron. This is one of those prison escape kind of stories. Paul Herron's a Scottish author and writer living in South Africa. Not too far away from me, I suppose. I actually follow him on social media, and yeah, he's a cool guy. And yeah, you could say this is his breakout novel, no pun intended. But yeah, I'm planning on reading this one, I think later this year. Fun fact, he's adapting his book into a screenplay for a movie based on it, and yeah, that'll be cool. So I want to read the book first and see what it's all about. Yeah. So yeah. Don't worry, Paul, I'll get to that eventually. Very soon this year. Let me put that down. Next up we have Orphan X. This is like one of those, espionage kind of books. You got this guy who's on the run from, I think, a secret government program that he was a part of. He was an orphan. Reminds me a bit of the Hitman video games, but it's not exactly the same, obviously. So yeah, that's kind of why I want to get into it. And yeah, it's written by Greg Howitz. And see, it's even got a recommendation from Lee Child. Outstanding in every way. It's distributed by Penguin House. That's a publisher I hope I can reach out to with my work, And this is part of a series. I'm not sure what it's called, but there's a couple of books in it, and that's also kind of why I wanted to buy this one. So, yeah, let's leave that there. Next up, we have The Name of the Wind. This is a very unconventional fantasy tale written by Patrick Rothfuss. This is the first book in his King Killer Chronicles trilogy. The second book is The Wise Man's Fear, and then the third one is still upcoming, The Doors of Stone. I think that's what it's going to be called. This one's about the most notorious sorcerer in the world and how he, became who he is now. And yeah, it's him, visiting an inn and telling his story. And this is the beginning of that story. Yeah. Some people say it's a bit overrated, and I guess I could agree with that, but it's still a very remarkable book. Patrick Rothfuss's writing style is fantastic, So yeah, I'm looking forward to the other two books. Then, then we have Frank Herbert's Dune. And this is the 50th anniversary edition. I have a bookmark here because last year I read about 100 pages, but I stopped at some point because I was getting burnt out. I'm going to start it again next year, leading up to the second movie. I've seen the first movie, I really enjoyed that, and yeah. This is part of a series. Yeah, the one that Frank Herbert himself wrote. He wrote this and 5 other sequels, and then his son, I think his son is Simon Herbert, he took over the series. And he's written a bunch of sequels and prequels and spin-offs, and the results are a mixed bag according to fans, but I'm curious. This is very unconventional sci-fi kind of stuff. It's not like Star Wars or The Matrix. I mean, it came way before those two. I remember those 100 pages I read being fantastic, and then seeing bits and pieces of that in the first movie, that was pretty cool, but I've yet to actually finish the book, so. And, check out the sequels too. I'll deal with that later. And, yeah, then we have Fahrenheit 451. This is actually one of my favorite books of all time. It's, some people may have heard of it, but they've never had the opportunity to read it. I'm telling you, go and read this one. This is about, a fireman by the name of Guy Montag who is, tasked with destroying books because they've become illegal now. And it's a commentary on censorship, um, the kind of the downside to that, I suppose. But it's, in some ways, it is very significant given how technology has advanced through social media and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this book was incredible. I've seen both the adaptations, and first one was great. The remake, not so much. Maybe I'll review this book one day on my channel when I have time. So yeah, okay, I need to clean this up, excuse me. Okay, and last but not least, given the fact that I had ranked all of the Game of Thrones seasons in my latest video, I'm saving Game of Thrones for last. This is the Song of Ice and Fire box set by George R.R. Martin, which was, of course, adapted into Game of Thrones. So, yeah. So, Game of Thrones and A Clash of Kings. A Storm of Swords is split into two separate manuscripts or volumes, Steel and Snow and Blood and Gold. Then A Feast for Crows, which is, book 4. A Dance with Dragons, which is book 5, is split into two manuscripts, Dreams and Dust, and After the Feast. So, yeah, maybe, I'll show you. It may be 7 books, but it's technically 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. I'm going to unbox this in a separate video because that'll be exciting. And it says Free Inside, post a map of Westeros and the Free Cities. That'll be cool. It's weird I haven't opened this yet, but yeah, I wanted to save that for a special occasion. And yeah, that's my book collection, guys. So next time, I'm going to be unboxing the Game of Thrones sets. So yeah, thank you all for watching, guys. Please be sure to like the video, share and subscribe. Hit the notification icon. Be safe during this time, and yeah, I'll see you soon. I should get this thing repainted at some point. Bye bye, guys. Take care.